You're listening to XSgaming Podcast, a podcast for gamers by gamers, with your hosts Xander, Skullion, and James Gruesome, bringing you something old, something new, and a little bit of nostalgia too.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of XSgaming Podcast. This is episode 130. We're recording this on 4/21/2019. I'm one of your hosts, Xander Skullion, and joined with me is my wonderful co-host, Mr. James Gruesome. What's up, James?
Oh, it's been a while. Wasn't that a terrible song? I hope everyone is having a great Easter if you celebrate. I hope your eggs that you collect are not rotten and you get chocolate bunnies and such, or even go to church if you like. Hope you had a good 420 yesterday, if you're into that, and a good Arbor Day. I think that was sometime. It's usually in spring. It's about planting trees, which is always awesome. But I hope you all are doing well, and hope no tornadoes hit down.
Oh yeah, we had some bad weather. Yeah,
it was a bit. I caught a lot of rain. I had to go out and move cat houses and make sure all the outside little buddies were good. But I actually saw a couple trees on some cars, like on my mail route, which it really depended on the area you got hit. And there's some really brutal tornadoes, but other than that, it actually feels great today. So hope everybody out there is just having a good day, and hope you are doing well.
Indeed. Yeah, it's been about a month since we did the last episode. It's been
about 2 actually.
Yeah, it's been so freaking busy. And let's start this episode with some happy birthdays, because one of our good friends, Ryan Cadaver, his birthday just passed. And he's been doing a lot of cool stuff, with casket creatures. He's actually filming a movie right now too. It looks really, really cool. And also, as well as Ryan, today is actually the 30th anniversary of the original Nintendo Game Boy. And I know, James, you're a big Game Boy fan. You love your Game Boy handhelds and stuff like that.
Definitely do. That's a big date. And when you think of everything that came from this one handheld that was, that black and white or pea green and gray, or whatever color you want to call it, it really had the games that backed it up. You saw it stood the test of time. Sega couldn't compete. Neo Geo couldn't compete. TurboGrafx couldn't. Nobody could compete with this little pea green, simple, handheld. Like I said, it stood the test of time. Games are still great, and you think of everything that came from it, dude. Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, SP, DS, and even, you could say, in some sorts, going on to the Switch as far as handheld. Really amazing 30-year run, and there was always some version. Sounds like some sirens going on in my house. I don't know if y'all heard that. It's okay. But, it really stood the test of time and lasted. We always had a version of it. I do own every one. I missed the color originally, but every other one I've had, and it's always been a great system. Like, Nintendo still truly remains to me like the king of handhelds, and like you just can't knock them off.
Yeah, like even some of the handhelds that you were mentioning earlier that were actually more advanced than the Game Boy. I mean, the Game Gear was a lot better than the Game Boy in many ways, the backlit screen and the color and everything, but it just couldn't compare with the games that the Game Boy had. Now, I will say one memory that every time I hear about the Game Boy that makes you think of is I actually found out, and if some parents and kids are listening to our show, you might want to show them away from this, what I'm about to tell you, but I actually found out Santa Claus wasn't real through the Game Boy. And how I found that out is I was up late one night. I was supposed to be sleeping, but I could hear my mom talking to my grandpa on the phone. And there was 2 things I wanted for Christmas, like one or the other. One, I either wanted a Game Boy or I wanted Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. And she's on the phone with him, and she's like, yeah, he's wanting either a Game Boy or this game on the Super Nintendo. She was like, but I'll be honest, I cannot stand that Mario crying. So that's how I got the Game Boy. It's because my mom, and it was funny because
Mom was right.
Yeah, and then right before we did the show, I'm like, because we have all these ROM hacks now, and I'm like, why hasn't someone made a ROM hack where you just mute Mario's cries? You just take the cries out. I'm pretty sure like someone like John Riggs, could do something like that. And I think that would I think people would buy that up to loads because that's like that's the one gripe that people have about that game is that freaking Mario cries.
Yeah, that would be. Other than that, it'd be great. And I'll throw out a Game Boy memory too. I can just remember having my Game Boy. I lived in a house. I had 2 older sisters, and one had just moved out. And for the longest time, yes, my bed was actually in my parents' room. Luckily, I never woke up to anything gross. I think they were too old for that at that point. God, I don't know. I don't want to think about it. But yes, I had a bed in my parents' bedroom, so it was a big deal. When I was in my younger, it's probably about 11 or 12, not too long, whenever the Game Boy came out, and I was moving in to my own room, which was a big deal. And I can remember sitting on the floor, even before having like a full bed in there, just on the floor with my Game Boy plugged in, playing. I can't remember. It was a boxing game, though. That was nowhere near good as Punch-Out, but it was still pretty fun. And I just remember sitting in this pink room. We had weird colors in the house. It was like from the 70s. And there was this bright red carpet that looked like lava. And, I did not care what color anything was because at least it was my own room. And I can remember sitting there playing the Game Boy doing that. So, you found out about Santa. I got my own room. They're both big steps in life, all associated with the Game Boy.
I'd say you're probably only concern back then was trying to have like a good light source. Playing the Game Boy.
It was during the day. I think we just had like a light bulb with like no cover over the thing. I don't know. It was I was okay right then. It was all good.
Well, also was celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Game Boy. A company called Retroflag. Retroflag's known for making really good console cases for Raspberry Pis, and this one here is called the G Pi. And what it is an actual Game Boy case that works with the Pi Zero or Pi Zero W, which is a smaller version of the Raspberry Pi. It's not as powerful as, say, like the Pi 3. But, you can play any 8-bit, 16-bit handheld stuff on it. And it's pretty much like you put the Pi Zero inside this, like, mock-looking cartridge. And you put the cartridge in the Game Boy and you have a Game Boy. It's got 2 extra buttons on the front, and it's got shoulder buttons in the back. And so, you can play like Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, and stuff like that. But it's cool. It's supposed to be coming out sometime in May. They're saying late May, and where it looks like it's going to be a price tag of $69.99. So, you're looking at $70 for the case. A Pi Zero would probably cost you around $10, $15. And then, of course, your SD card. And then of course it doesn't come with a Pi, it doesn't come with an SD card, just comes with the case and instructions of how to install everything. But I'm thinking about getting one. I think that's kind of cool, actually.
Now this does, so it ends up just pretty much playing like a Game Boy. But you mean by the case, it's got the screen, so you can play it like a Game Boy?
Well, it looks exactly like Game Boy, but the screen itself is a colored screen. So it's not going to be like, playing Super Nintendo with like the pea green like screen.
Yeah, I just meant it technically is a handheld system, right?
Yes.
See, that's awesome because for me, I know we have access to so many of these, handheld games on the Pi, but I'm sure I'm like many people where I like to play those games on a handheld. They don't look right on the TV. It loses something.
Yeah, it looks really blown out. Like, have you played any Atari Lynx games on the TV?
No, I actually haven't tried any of those.
Oh God,
yet.
It looks so weird. Like the sprites are so big on the screen, it looks almost like, I don't know, it looks so washed out. Like I would rather play that on an actual handheld. But yeah, I thought it was really cool. And speaking of plug and plays, we got 2 plug and plays that were announced during our little break. One, of course, is the Sega Genesis plug and play, which is it's interesting for me. Because I'm like, wow, this is going to be made, because it's made by Sega. It's not going to be like At Games or some third-party developer, publisher. This is all Sega. And they've been kind of hush-hush so far. They've talked about like 10 games or so that's going to be on it. Some of the games, of course, is your usuals like Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, But they also include games like the Illusion, Mickey Mouse's Castle of Illusion is going to be on there. Also, Musha. Musha's going to be on there, and Earthworm Jim. So it's interesting. I know, me personally, I wish it was something other than Sega Genesis, because I feel like Sega Genesis is so easy to come by. But I can see why Sega did it. because that is their most popular console for the masses.
Yeah, it kind of nice to have out there. As you know, there's been lots of criticism about the at games one. So many hopes of actually really good system coming out. Though I did like the option with the last at one of the last at games you could play cartridges on it too.
Yeah.
I thought was neat. I'm not as picky, not to sound like, oh, I'm better than you, because like I'm sure it was crappy with the sound and stuff, but sometimes I'm not as into that. I do think the price range on this one to me is just, it's kind of high.
Yeah.
I really love what Nintendo did. I thought with their price range and what you got was really good. This one, I think it's the 40 games, and they've about 20 announced so far. Bloodlines, hey, that's really cool to have on there too, because it's a great game. I think a lot of people missed. I'd really like to see these plug and plays more in the range of like 50 to 60. I think it's just a bit more reasonable, where even though I have a lot of these games, I would consider it more picking up. As far as $80, like, it's totally out. We saw the Neo Geo one. That one was really high and just seemed like a little, awkward, kind of neat, more of a collector's piece. Whereas this one seems a little bit more maybe for the casual. But like I said, that price range, drop off $20, even at 60, I think that'd be great, and I wouldn't even be talking about it. But that $80, we saw the PlayStation one. It's kind of a big, but
that one and that one's dropped in price. Like that one now, you can buy it at Walmart for like $60.
Yeah, that would have been better to see, right from the start. That's just, to me, that $60 is just, that's the price of a game.
Yeah.
So it equates out, and to me, the 80, like I said, who knows? Features, good emulation. It could be worth it to some, but at the same time, too, I'd say if you want one, I would also say maybe wait a little bit, because everything usually ends up dropping in price. So it could very easily end up, at that range that I think is just, be a little bit better. I think you could get way more sales off at $20 less that would make up that $20,
Yeah, it's interesting because this whole plug and play thing is almost like sometimes I wonder what the market is for, because like sometimes the plug and plays come out and I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be like for, casual people who are going down nostalgia lane that want to play some old games, because I've heard plenty of people who even bought the at games, but oh man, I went to Dollar General and they had the Sega Genesis there and I bought it, and and they liked it for what it was. They didn't know any better. But then you have things that I'm about to get into, like the Capcom plug and play, this arcade 2-player arcade stick that's going to be packed in with 16 games. It's $250, and that's clearly not for a casual consumer. This is, to me, this is like totally cashing in on the niche collectability of these plug and plays.
Yeah, I saw that too. The price on that one, outrageous. From what I hear, that those parts, the Sanwa, Sawa, I'm not super familiar with those, but I hear the parts in that are actually really good and kind of make up the cost. But you do have to be a bit more of a hardcore collector. I think this is the controller you could probably use on other things as well, but the fact is it's doubled up and it's attached. You can't separate it. It's 2 players, so it's huge. Now, a lot of people do use the huge controllers at competitions, so at least this one maybe will have the option of that. I think this one, too, at that price range, definitely should have had way more games.
Yeah, more than 16. Now, the 16 games they have on it are, essential Capcom. Like, you got Strider, you have Street Fighter. Of course, one of the biggest games that they're going to have on it is a game that has never came out on console, and that's Alien vs. Predator, which I was like, man, that's awesome. I kind of wish Alien vs. Predator was also available digitally on consoles, at least.
Beat 'em up collection. They could put it in that if they got the rights to it.
You'll do like a DLC or something, like a DLC on the Capcom Fighting Collector thing that they have. It'd be cool. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought it was cool. I was like, man, this Capcom thing's sweet. But yeah, $250 is a little too high for my blood. I can't justify it. And the last little bit of news I was going to talk about is a little bit of PlayStation Xbox news. Now, James, you've heard about the Xbox One. It's Xbox One S All Digital, a.k.a. the Xbox SAD. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that?
That's just, me being, recently getting the Xbox, which I've actually really enjoyed having. For the most part, I kind of keep mine all digital. As far as using the Game Pass, Game Share, I've bought maybe 6 games, on disc that were very cheap. But I just figure, as far as like the price range that's in, like why? Why not have the best of both worlds? You can have that option of really cool, because we all know digital games never end up as cheap as you can get them used on disc. It just doesn't happen. I bought Rise Fall of Rome, which, yes, it's an older game, but I got it for $5. Like, how much is that going to cost digitally? It's going to be more than $5. It's kind of like, why not leave yourself, open? And for me, I wanted to leave my Xbox a little bit more digital. Like I said, with getting the option of cheap games, I have bought a few, but this just, people kind of expected it, I think, to be smaller.
Yeah,
the system itself.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be smaller and cheaper, because I was like, okay, well, this could be like a cheap alternative. Because my idea was, I was thinking this was something geared towards parents with kids, and they'd be like, okay, well, I can get this for little Timmy, get Game Pass, Xbox Live. I don't have to worry about him messing up the disc. Boom, there you go. He can play whatever he wants. But like with the $250 price tag, you're better off just getting an OG Xbox One at that point.
There's many other options, that are just so much better. And like I said, it leaves the option open for discs. It kind of seemed, I understood at first what they were doing. And every time I, try to give Xbox a pass, because I think so many things what they do are good, then they come out with something like this, and it's just like, what is really the purpose of this? And like I said, the price is too high. You're right. If you want an Xbox, just stick with one of the ones that's got a disc. Like, your options are better, and at the end, you're going to end up paying way less. It's a very odd step. Every 2 steps forward, and a step back. It just kind of seems like what Xbox keeps doing, which I hate seeing.
Yeah, definitely. And a little bit of Sony news is, of course, now we have talks with the PlayStation 5. From what we know so far, it's going to be backwards compatible with PlayStation 4, which is really cool. I'm not sure if it's going to be backwards compatible with any other.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Seems like, rumors initially were more that this was like total backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
I was kind of buying into it. And then I will tell you, I'm completely happy with just 4, because that's more than we've gotten, lately. So if that has that, especially if you can use, VR, which I have, and they've been pretty good. Even, the moves, you can use the ones, from the PS3. Full on, yes, that's what we want, mainly because of these licensed games that just, are never going to get a digital release. But it was kind of sad to see, that it seems like it may not be like everything. But like I said, at the same time, I'm not too let down, because I think that's still something. Definitely makes it worth, upgrading a bit more, maybe sooner. If you want to get that extra money on a trade-in on your system, before the new one comes out. But it is still a ways off, and who knows, what'll happen.
Yeah, because they're looking at maybe like 2021, and that's their prediction. Also, price tag looks like it's going to be around $400 to $500, which is a given. I think that's kind of a normal thing for consoles. The exception of the Switch, when the Switch came out, was a little cheaper. But yeah, it's supposed to be like super powerful, faster load times, PlayStation 4 cross capability. I was like, yeah, this sounds pretty sweet. I'm all about the PlayStation 5. I'm probably not going to get it at launch. I'll probably wait a little bit and get it, but from what it looks like, it sounds pretty good.
I do think, to me, with any of the systems, the more backwards compatibility you have, that makes it more of a system seller. To me, I think, and to many people right off the bat, because at least all these games I invested in, I don't have to keep 2 systems.
Mm-hmm.
I've still only got 2 goddamn HDMI plugs in the back of my TV. It's a pain in the ass.
Same,
and
yep.
You keep switching, at least the Switch, it's like, well, I can kind of leave that in handheld. I usually got, lately it's the Xbox plugged in and the Amazon Fire Stick, or I switch it out and it just sucks. So the less plugs, you have, the better. And like you said, the price, to me, I was like, didn't the PS4 come out at $500? And
yeah, that's
someone
right.
told me, well, a lot of people told me they thought that one came out at $4, and the PS3 came out at a pretty outrageous price. I think was over $5. So that is kind of normal. So that's not. That's still a deterrent, because it's like, oh man, I don't really know if my GameStop credit card has enough money on that to cover that. So. Waiting is always good, but having that, having that backwards compatibility option makes me want to jump into it a bit quicker.
Same.
So I'm always for that, and to me that's always a plus. It kind of leans me towards, like, they're not trying to juice me, because it's like, oh, we got PS5, but you can buy these games you already have on the store, buy them again. And it's like, I don't want to do that. To me, that's more customer care is what backwards compatibility is, Yeah,
because that was one of the biggest gripes I had with PlayStation 4 when it first came out. When it came out, it was like all the games that were on PlayStation 4, you had like a handful of exclusives, and then everything else was coming out was like the HD remasters. But, oh, you like Last of Us? Well, we got Last of Us remastered.
Dude,
I hated
think even
that.
if PS5 even went back to a PS3 backwards compatibility.
See, that would be cool,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, dude, that would be like, because I hardly ever, my PS3 is a Blu-ray player downstairs in my house pretty much. I hardly ever play games on it, which is kind of sad, because sometimes there's still some games, I'd like to go back to, but I just don't. But I mean, even to have 3, 4, 5, and maybe give me a good digital library, a PS1 and 2 games, or have it where you can, transfer those if you bought them in previous years. But we got a little bit of time in between, so who knows what we'll actually end up seeing.
Indeed. Now, we're going to get into the main topic of this episode. And this episode, we're going to talk about samurai games. What gave me this idea was, of course, Sekiro, Shadow Dies Twice, which both of us have played, and I no longer have it. I'll go ahead and say that it just wasn't for me. Like, it was a good game, but it just wasn't for me. What about you, James?
I'm kind of on the same way, and I got it on my Xbox, which to me it's a little bit more beneficial, though I did get it digitally, so I can't trade it in. But at least me and my friend that I game share with both got to play it. So to me that makes it a little bit better, because I've gotten mini games through him. I did play it at first, and I was like, man, it's kind of tough. Started getting into it a little bit more, and then I barely made it out of what is essentially the tutorial mode. And I just didn't. Man, I'm old, man. I was like, I don't have time for this stuff sometimes. And I get it. Like, I'm a pussy. I'm not a real gamer. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Like, it'd be nice. Sure, I'd take an easy mode on it. And you know what? Maybe I'd play it. I might go back to it again. I will probably still suck at it. Kind of like you. It's not for me. I'm sure it's awesome. But, we're going to talk about a lot of games that, if you're into samurais and ninjas, that, maybe might be a little bit more accessible to everybody, because none of these are going to be as hard as that fucking game. So
yeah, I think it's just one of those games that either people click with it or they don't. Because I know, like, my friend Devin, like, he beat it, and he was like, oh, yeah, it's great, I love it. And I'm like, dude, more power to you, because I don't know, I'm not coordinated enough to do all the parries and all that stuff. I like the stealth mode that it had in there, because it made me think of Tenchu. I was like, that's pretty cool. And the game looks beautiful. It's got a great story. It's just, there was just something missing that I wasn't clicking with. But I have a little, like, 5 lists of samurai games I'm going to talk about, and I'm sure you have a list too. I want to start off with a samurai game that I really liked that was on the PlayStation 2, and that was Way of the Samurai.
Definitely an awesome series.
Yeah, that is so good. Like, I had a lot of fun playing that, and I don't know if did they branch out on any other like any sequels or on other consoles.
No, it was only on PS4. There was 4 total. My favorites are still 1 and 2 from the PlayStation 2, which are still really good games. You can usually find them pretty cheap. 3 was actually on disc on PS3, and 4 was download only. Though I think they've had a couple of revised editions, and I'm not sure if this is only Japan or if we got them too. But they've had a Way of the Samurai 3 and 4 Plus, because both of those had a bit of DLC. And Way of the Samurai 3, I tried playing it. I think it was after I had gotten to Yakuza, and they're kind of similar, to me.
That's what I've heard. Yeah,
the wackiness and everything. And 3, I don't know if it was from me playing Yakuza. I couldn't get into it as much, but I have heard 4 is just really wacky. And like I said, it's on PS3 download only, which I'm still thinking of getting, even though, as I said previously, I don't play my PS3 as much. I still want to try it because it was such a fun series. It was wacky. You had the options, all these different swords, multiple endings. It was violent and bloody, and it was just such, a really cool game.
Yeah. Definitely a game that I feel like some people missed out on that definitely need to check out. Now, what was one that you had on your list?
I'm going to bring out one that's an older one. It was around the time of, Tenchu, when we'd gotten that, which was a very awesome revolutionary ninja game. But Soul of the Samurai was put out by Konami. It was a PS1 game, and to me it was like the samurai equivalent of Tenchu. Now, even though you had, the guy was a Ronin, you could pick from 2 players, and the female character was a ninja, so I guess it kind of had both of them mixed up in there. But you could upgrade your swords. You'd always find new ones. It didn't quite have the story of Way of the Samurai, but it was a little bit more in-depth with the fighting. It had a little bit of, tricks to the controls. I'd say, not as extreme as, Sekiro. A little bit easier to get the hang of, but you definitely could end up, hitting, some one-hit kills with certain maneuvers. And, it was one of those games that was cheaper, just sounded cool, and I've loved it. Like, I still have a copy of it, to this day. And I can remember playing it. I think it was from 98, 99. It was around that time. And it's one that
was a good year.
I still think it holds up. Sure, it's a little bit more basic. I think I'd put it this way. To me, it holds up a little bit better than the original Tenchu. Like, as great as that was. This one's a little bit easier to play. But like I said, it's Soul of Samurai. It's really, really awesome.
I haven't played it. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, check out definitely on some emulators. Like I said, PS1, still really fun.
One that I put down, it's got the word ninja in it, but to me, I think the character is more of a samurai than a ninja. But it's on the TurboGrafx 16, Ninja Spirits. That game, oh my gosh. That's by far one of the best ninja samurai kind of games that I just love playing it. And I like the fact that you could get a move where you'd play as 2 of yourself, and you would just do all these crazy combos. I actually downloaded the arcade version a couple weeks ago and played it for the first time. I've always played the TurboGrafx version, and it was amazing how much the TurboGrafx did a good job doing the port of the arcade. And it's one of those games that when you talk to folks about the TurboGrafx, that's a game that always gets brought up. It was like their version of Shinobi, sort of. It was really, really cool. You've played Ninja Spirits, yeah?
Oh yeah. Actually, I have a copy of that one. That one's always been a top one, and I was gonna say, like you did, people with TurboGrafx, mentioned that one. And for the topic of this episode, ninjas are completely fine, because I kind of birthed the topic of this one, and I was thinking samurais at first. When you play Sekiro, but actually at the end, Sekiro is a ninja. He actually isn't a samurai, so it's a good, and we see how there is a crossover. Even I said with Soul of Samurai, you've got a samurai and a ninja. So
it goes hand in hand. It really does. It's like the peanut butter and jelly of ancient Japan.
They really bleed in. A really interesting. It's kind of a series in a sense, but there was a game on the NES called Shadow Warriors, and it came out after Ninja Gaiden, which of course is one of the first real big ninja games that we got, and everybody loved it. It was hard. Shadow Warriors, though, had that option of 2 players, which I think as kids, many of us really wanted on a lot of these games. if you had that option of co-op, it made the game so much better because as kids you're playing with your friends lots of times. And Shadow Warriors had that. It was a slightly easier version, I think, of a Ninja Gaiden. You had like a chain weapon, and then you'd have your swords, and of course some shurikens and such. But the real interesting thing to me about Shadow Warriors is they started to make a Game Boy version, and Tecmo ended up buying, kind of the rights to it, and they ended up making Ninja Gaiden Shadows, which was the Game Boy Ninja Gaiden game. Which in turn, like I said, was actually a Shadow Warriors game. And then they also made another sequel on the Game Boy Color, which I think I have played on an emulator called Return of the Ninja. So Shadow Warriors is this real, like I said, it's a weird series that's kind of inspired and similar to Ninja Gaiden, which crosses over into Ninja Gaiden with the Game Boy one, and then goes back into another game of its own, Return of the Ninja.
Oh my gosh, that's so
and
crazy.
they're all actually really fun. Like I said, that co-op, in a game like that just gives it that extra bonus. Like technically it might not be as good as Ninja Gaiden, but when you think about it with the aspect of the co-op, it really, brings it up a step.
Damn. Yeah. Is it that because you were talking about it and I was trying to picture the game in my head. Is that the one where like the character, he's like in a blue karate outfit?
Well, there's that one. There's another one that's called, and I can't remember, when I was doing some research earlier, there was so many games literally I wrote down and was taking some notes on.
Because what I'm thinking about
is called Blue Shadow, which might be the same. But there's also another similar game called Ninja Crusaders by Sammy, which that one, you have the option of like 5 different weapons, and those 5 different weapons you can also turn into different animal spirits.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
But there's also this Blue Shadow game, which I think is, these are these kind of forgotten, it's really cool we're talking about them because they're kind of the forgotten ninja games on the NES. But there's one Blue Shadow, which I think is different than Shadow Warriors, but it might also be the same.
the one I'm thinking about, it was done by Natsume.
Natsume is Shadow Warriors.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah, because that's the game I was thinking of. I'm like, man, because I remember that game played very similar to Ninja Gaiden, but it was a lot. I thought it was better, to be honest. I kind of liked it.
That was one of those games I remember me and my friend rented, and it got stuck under his table, and he ended up with a really big late fee on that game.
Now, a game that I want to talk about that I wish they would bring back, and you know what? This would actually be a really cool VR game on PlayStation 4 if Square Enix did this, and that is Bushido Blade. Bushido Blade 1 and 2 that was on the PlayStation 1. These games, they were just so cool because it was like a fighting game, but you didn't have a health bar. It was more of actual sword play. Unless you're playing
one hit, one kill. If you were good.
Yeah, and I remember me and my friends, we'd fight each other, but we'd also be on that level with the trees, and we would just sit there and cut trees down. That's all we would do. We would just sit there and cut trees because like the elements of the background you could actually use to your advantage, like cutting trees down or doing this and doing that. I remember there was always that one character that always had a gun that I always hated that people would choose because the gun was like the biggest like dick move. Everyone's got different swords and bow staffs and like chains and stuff, and this guy's got a freaking revolver. I'm like, no, that's not fair. But that was such a good game, and sometimes the matches would last like 5 minutes or 2 seconds. It was crazy.
It really could go. That's one I don't think I quite appreciated till I was older because we got so used to the fighting games that generation. Your Street Fighters, Virtua Fighters, Tekkens, and this is one that was really different, and it gave you that, if you could nail that one hit, which, would be like a real sword fight. Samurai Showdown, you could say was a bit more, unrealistic, whereas this one, you hit that right move at the right time, and it was a really cool one. Like I said, it's great to go back and play it, and I have a bigger appreciation for it, than I did back then. Another really cool one from Sega on the PS2 that I really liked was Blood Will Tell, where you were a samurai and you have to track down body parts for some reason in the story. I guess your eyeball was taken, your arm, your leg. It kind of made me think of Sekiro, how he ends up having the attachment in his arm that you can change out.
Yeah.
This game was like that, and the really cool thing was it started off in black and white because you didn't have your eye. And then when you get your eye, it turns into color. So, you could have that little, expansion on it, and then you could get different attachments for your body. And it was all about going around collecting these parts. Really cool. Sega always did some really awesome games, and I think it was kind of, like underlooked, because there was a lot of different samurai games. The Samurai Warriors and stuff, the Koei Tecmo games were always, a real big one that I was never a fan of, and sometimes I think they overshadowed some of these, smaller games like this.
Yeah. You mentioned Samurai Showdown. That's definitely one of the games that I have on my list. And I mean, you can't mention samurai games without mentioning Samurai Showdown, which they're actually making a new one, a new Samurai Showdown, which I'm really excited about. But I thought this game was special for the time because, as trivial as it sounds, when it came out, it had like fighters with actual weapons. Like that was a big deal back then. Like you had special moves, but they also had like katanas and like spears and axes. And I always liked how you kind of had that little referee in the beginning, the guy in all black that would sit there and kind of give you the points and stuff like that.
Hajime.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, one of the first, more weapons-based game. Even though it still really played like your typical fighter. You wouldn't think like the moves had, the weapons, had specific moves for them. But it still felt, like it did, and it was a series that lasted. It had blood, it had fatalities and such. Just, a really awesome fighting game that stood the test of time. Another one of my favorites. It's really not one of the best, but I love playing Wrath of the Black Manta.
Yeah, I have a guilty pleasure with that. I kind of like that game.
Kind of a little bit similar to Shinobi. A lot of times you're rescuing kids, and it's kind of like Moonwalker too. It's all like, ninjas are good guys, I guess. All these kidnapped children. The biggest thing I found actually looking up some on Wrath of the Black Manta was the huge difference in between the European and U.S. versions and the Japanese. The fact that we were missing a stage. Many of the cutscenes were changed. They had a more anime style in the Japanese version where all bars were replaced. Soundtrack was completely different. Some of the bosses were different. These are things we didn't know as kids. It's just like you just think like, oh, this is the game, and then in turn there is like a completely different version of it. And apparently one of the cutscenes, I think on the U.S. version, it looks extremely similar, or was taken. There was a book put out by like Stan Lee, like how to draw comic characters, and apparently there is a super similar cutscene in the U.S. version that looks just like something from the Stan Lee book, which is kind of funny. Yeah.
Oh wow. I think the last one that I have is a long-going series. It's had countless spin-offs, but I just like the first couple of them were a lot of fun, and that was of course Dynasty Warriors. I like the Dynasty Warriors series. I know later on the games got a little too crazy, and I've enjoyed the spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors, the Dragon Quest heroes, stuff like that. But what I liked about it is because they were pretty much like Command and Conquer meets beat 'em ups. It was just so archaic and so much fun, and you had so much ancient Japanese history with the original Dynasty Warrior games. They were just a lot of fun.
Yeah, like you said, lots of history attached. I always just really, and I remember I was criticized one time for mentioning how I thought these games would be better with blood and guts. And
you're not wrong.
No, I still agree with that, because that would be more historically accurate. These would be bloody, brutal battles, and I just think like lobbing somebody's head off, riding by on a horse, would just be really dope. And I don't know, that might seem childish to some. I just think it would be cool because I do like the blood and stuff. And that's another one, like you said, it's expanded over time so much. There's so many different versions, whether it's Samurai Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, Dynasty Warriors, like any portion of history is really covered with these. And, they're still coming out. And I like that, the love with the Dragon Warriors, Zelda, to have that. Maybe you're more into those games, and it really gives you, like you said, a really cool, beat 'em up to play. As far as series too, I mean, Onimusha,
yeah,
which is one recently was re-released. You can get it on the Switch. It came out, I think, on everything, and that's one. To see a older game like that come out and people still like it, and it's one I think a lot of people still want to see. We kind of got this in the the era, Resident Evils, and this was put out, and it was different, but had huge samurai aspect to it, of course, and it still had some blood. It was kind of like a samurai horror game almost. It's of collecting souls and growing your powers, and it's one that went up to what do you get? It was about part 3, I think. We had a couple spinoffs, and it's just been kind of dormant. And I definitely don't want to forget one game that I thought was completely awesome, very unique, and it was only on one system, but it was Odama on the GameCube.
Oh, the pinball game.
The pinball. What kind
with
of
the
insane
microphone?
Thing? Yes, a microphone that came with it, and it was some type of samurai battle game and pinball all mixed together, which sounds completely weird. And it was, but it was really cool. And I just, I'm sure they could have some way to put that back out again. Sometimes we have built-in microphones to things. I don't know. I'd love to see Odama come back out.
That was a cool game.
I think it was too weird for its own good.
I just remember it was such a big box. I remember seeing the big box in stores. I'm like, man, this game looks crazy. And when I heard it was a pinball game, I'm like, what? Because then, I thought it was like some RTS game or something, like a strategy game.
It's like it had a bit of strategy in it, but also in with the pinball, and just such the, they've done some amazing things with pinball over the years, the Pinball of the Dead, but this one is just even more unique, and just it's a strange game. It was actually, I think, developed by the guy that did Seaman, which we all know was a really weird game too. Probably, I think with the pinball aspect of it, it's a little bit more accessible, than Seaman. But it's one that's really hard to go back to because, like I said, you got to have a GameCube, you got to have the microphone. I'm not sure if the microphone, works with the Wii, which is, how I play my GameCube games. I don't think it does. So it's one of those games that really is kind of lost in time. Just, due to aspects and the different attachments for it. So, who knows? We like it. So maybe one day. And I also do have to throw out too, can never skip this game, Ninja 5-0 on the GBA.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's still one of the best GBA games. If you like ninjas and Bionic Commando, like you got to play this game. It's too expensive to buy.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a very expensive game, unfortunately.
Emulate it. It just keeps going up and up. It's the oddest game. There's a Konami one. I remember getting it, I think, for like $20, and it has just gone up since. It's one of those ones that's pretty insane last time I checked, and it's not on, anything. I'd love to see it re-released, but in the meantime, hey, emulate it because that is definitely another just kind of lost game I think so many people forget about, and it's just so cool.
Indeed. And did you have any last ones before we get into games we've been playing recently?
I will say one that I was glad to play that came out when the Wii started doing their virtual console, and initially they had a couple of Commodore 64 games on there. And there was a series called The Last Ninja. It had a Shokasugi. So, if you're into Enter the Ninja, Return of the Ninja movies, he actually did some, I think he was on the cover, or he was the cover model. And I think he did, some of the, screen caps or whatever they would have been doing back in the early 80s. but just it was one of the earlier ninja games that I always remember hearing about. And it's kind of hard to play, and I'm not saying it's that great, but to me, its historic aspect and the fact that it actually, had the ninja Sho Kosugi, working on it, I thought was so cool. And there was 3 of them. They only put the one out on the Wii. I kind of wish they'd done the others, or I kind of wish, there's always, hey, just emulate it. We can always do that. But that was just that was a historic one, to me. It had the ninja, and it's kind of crappy, but I think it's pretty cool.
Indeed. And if you guys have any samurai games you want to mention, be sure to leave a comment on our YouTube video. Let us know some samurai games maybe we missed out on or we didn't mention on the show, definitely. But getting the games we've been playing recently, James, I know one that you've been playing a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic because I know there's a game that you've been really, really pushing lately.
I have. I'll just throw 2 out that I've been playing, and I'll mention the other one first. Is one that I've been playing in Assassin's Creed. It's not really the one I've been pushing. I'll get to that in a second. But Assassin's Creed, I hadn't really played it since the first one. Played a bit of the pirate one, and my friend Kenneth that got me my Xbox had been mentioning Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and he's been hooked on it like for a long time. Like he's on like level 85, and he's just been playing it and getting all the DLC. And when he mentioned it was this whole Greek mythos, and we've had a lot of the Greek stuff with God of War, and I like God of War, but I'm also like pretty terrible at it. And when he mentioned there was like a Minotaur and stuff, I was like, oh man, like I gotta check this out. And it's only $20, like brand new. It was still like 50 used. So I guess it was on sale. And it really, to me, I'm a huge fan of like Jason and the Argonauts, the old Harryhausen movie. I always loved Greek mythology. And this really is just like a nice big open world of Greekness. And I think it's really cool how there's different ones. There's like an Egyptian one, and kind of seems like no matter what part of history you like, it seems there's some Assassin's Creed game for it. And I've been out of the loop for a while, and that one's been a really fun one that I really love playing. I sat and played that for longer than I had in a while until a couple days later when I got this other game. I was looking on the Switch store, and this game came out, I think, in 2014. It was a remake of Shadowgate. Shadowgate was one of my favorite games on the NES. Rented it so many times and never owned it. I was always renting, always playing it, getting further and further. It was kind of a series. You would Shadowgate, Deja Vu 2, Uninvited. They're all kind of tough to go back and play now. Even as much as I like them, it's very slow. And they were made, originally to play with a mouse. And when you transfer over to like a D-pad on the controller, it's just not as intuitive. But in around 2014, they did a complete remake, and it does have a lot of the same music. It's so familiar. If you played the old one, you go through and it's like, I remember this, I remember that. Even my friend, I gifted it to him on the over Xbox Live, which I like how you can do that because he was thinking of getting it. And he's like, man, I got stuck in the same place. It's like Stupid Dragon. I'm like, oh yeah, do this and that. I remembered so much, but like the graphics completely different, and they give you the options. There are some things they added on for the console version, I think, with like some difficulty levels. I know you can use the original NES music if you want, and it also has the pixelated graphics when you would go in between rooms, which normally isn't on there. There's a couple different ways you can play. I've been using this wheel, which it's got all your items in your bag, your regular, your weapons, and it takes a little bit to get used to, but it really is, way more intuitive to use. And I've really been loving that. It's just, like I said, I've been wanting to play it probably for about 5 years since I heard about it. And it's still, one of my favorite games. I do love the original graphics. There's something, just with the memory and the nostalgia that never leaves you, with that. But the fact that you can have the old music and the new graphics do look really cool. That is such a awesome game. So, like if you're into, dragons and wizards, and like I said, it is more of a point and click type game. I'd say check it out. If you love the original, I'd say check it out, because I loved it, and just to see it in this new form, it's just, really cool. And there is another game too I've not played it. I always mention games I've bought but not played on games I've been playing, but it's I think it's like Friends of Ichigama or something. It looks very River City Ransom-ish. Actually, I bought it the same day that I got Shadowgate. And that was what drew me to it. It's like, this looks like River City Ransom, but I guess it's got a little bit more life simulation to it, where you have to go to school, but then you can also go kick people's asses. The kind of complaints I've seen is people have said it's not really clear. They just kind of throw you in the game, and you gotta figure it out. But it's one next episode I'll talk about that, because I'm definitely gonna try it out. I got stuck in the Assassin's Creed and the Shadowgate. I played Shadowgate for probably about like 4 or 5 hours. I killed my Switch. I was playing in handheld mode, and I haven't killed my Switch in a long time, and Shadowgate killed it. So I mean, that's one definitely I'd say. Like I said, if you love the original, or you've always been curious about it, check it out, because it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I recently just uploaded a video of games I've been playing, so my list is going to be kind of short, because you guys can check out that video to see more in depth the stuff I've been playing. But mostly, like the last couple of days, of course, I got Cuphead on the Switch. I have Cuphead on Steam, and it played pretty okay on my laptop. I don't have the best laptop. I mean, it ran fine, but I did notice something playing the Switch version is I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I was using a PS4 controller on my PC using Steam, but I felt like Cuphead on Steam had a little bit of input lag, just a smidge, because it seems to be a little more responsive on the Switch. So I've been playing that. I actually got to the second area in Cuphead. I defeated like the 4 people and got the contracts to go to the next one. So I'm playing that. Also been playing Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze with my girlfriend. We've been playing that, and actually just went out and bought Super Mario Brothers Wii on the Nintendo Wii. I used to have it, didn't have it anymore, and I don't know, me and my girlfriend's been in this big Mario platforming kick, so she was like, man, I wish we could play some more Mario, and I'm like, wait, there's this one. So got that, and I'm trying to think of what else I've been playing. I feel like I'm leaving something out. It's been mostly Cuphead, though. I've just been really playing a lot of Cuphead. It was one of my favorite games of 2017, so I love it.
Yeah, I played some of that recently. A friend of mine come over that had never got to play it before, so it was cool. And I know someone, we were talking about Cuphead and Shadowgate, and there's somebody on one of the, I don't know if it was your page, the XS page, mentioned how Shadowgate was harder than Cuphead, and I was like, no. Cuphead is like the hardest goddamn thing I've ever played. Maybe Sekiro is like the hardest.
Yeah, Sekiro is probably one of the hardest games I've played.
Cuphead to me, though, 2 players, though, to me is like the real way to play it, because that's the only way like I think I'm ever gonna get anywhere on that game. But it's so beautiful. The graphic style, it's just so cool that like you don't mind dying as much, What
I did was like, my strategy to Cuphead is, of course, I go through all the run and gun levels and I collect coins, and I go to the shop. I bought where I have like 4 hearts instead of 3, and I also bought this one weapon. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's like this green thing that you shoot, and it's almost like a homing shot. So you don't even have to be facing the person that you're shooting at. You can just be holding the fire button down, and it makes it so much easier. And like I've explained to some people, like Cuphead's tough, but to me it's almost like retro gaming tough, in the sense like Castlevania or Mega Man, where you have to memorize character patterns and reflexes, and I know my reflexes are nowhere near what they used to be when I was a kid. Like if I was playing Cuphead and I was like 10 years old, I'd already have it beaten by now. I just don't have that sort of reflexes like I did back then. It's crazy.
Yeah, I could see that definitely in that old, retro sense, where sometimes it's something we're just not. It's maybe not that it's that hard. It's like we're just not used to it anymore because we're old.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is going to conclude an episode of XS Gaming, and hopefully next episode won't be another month behind, but life happens. But definitely, guys, if you're checking this out on iTunes or on Podomatic, be sure to leave us a review. It helps the show. And as always, guys, hope you have a happy Easter, and as always, happy gaming.
Have a pleasant evening, everybody.